Welcome back to Truck Tech, everyone. This is Alan Adler, your host. We have been doing over the weeks and months different segments around the Volvo VNL, the all-new, 90% new truck from Volvo Trucks. Today, we're going to spend a little bit of time with Magnus Gustafsson, who is the head of connected services for Volvo here in North America. Magnus, welcome to Truck Tech.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
This is an interesting area. You know, we've covered a lot of different topics, really, design and a number of different things about the VNL. There's a piece of this that really is truly behind the scenes, and that's the connectedness of it. I wondered, you've got a background, I think you said most of your career is in aftermarket, but you've also ran the Volvo Uptime Center. There's obviously some connection between what you did there and what you're doing now. Maybe you can take us through that.
No, absolutely. So, yeah, as you rightly mentioned, I used to be responsible for our Uptime Center in Greensboro. And part of that is also then supporting customers on the road, knowing how they operate their vehicle, the support needs that they have. But also now in this role, how do we generate insight from the truck based on the learnings, based on support cases, based on how trucks are performing, and how do we channel that information back to the customer so they can get on top of and be proactive with the information that the trucks can generate to generate value, to generate insight, and then understanding how do I really take advantage of some of the features and some of the operational insights that these trucks are generating.
The trucks themselves have gigabytes, if not terabytes, of data available to you.
Yeah.
The use of this data becomes something that I think probably even does affect the bottom line, especially as you get into some of these areas like preventative and predictive maintenance and things like that. We'll get to that in a moment, but I want to talk to you a little bit. I want to understand some of the enhancements now that have been made to the Blue Service Agreement. Did I get that term right? Is that the correct way?
Blue Service Contracts. Yeah.
Blue Service Contract. Yeah. I want to understand, because you're among the pioneers in this kind of work in terms of basically creating a service contract that goes with the truck.
Yeah.
Maybe you can kind of walk us through for those who aren't familiar with how this works.
No, absolutely. So really what we're doing is we're taking the connected vehicle data and looking at analyzing that data, looking at how is the truck actually being used. So in the traditional sense, you spec a truck, right? And then it's normal duty, heavy duty, severe duty, and you fall into these different application types. What actually happens though in real life is that the truck runs, and it may run different duty cycles over different periods of time. It could be at different seasons, could be in different areas of the country, right? Mm-hmm. But then in the traditional sense, it's very static. I do my oil maintenance intervals every 40,000, 50, 60,000, whatever that may be. But then by applying how is the truck used, what are the actual operational conditions, how much time to idle, like take idling into consideration, for instance. Where is it being run? And then how do we optimize maintenance for that particular truck? So it's not just for the fleet, it's for the individual truck. You can have multiple trucks spec the same way, but they may be ran differently. They could operate differently. Different driver behavior impacts how those trucks should be maintained. And that's really the backbone of the service contracts.
So those intervals, if you will, can change really from time to time and truck to truck. You might have a certain use case once that would put you, saying that you said 40 or 50,000 mile oil change or something like that. Next time it might have not been either used as much or used differently. And so you perhaps would extend that out farther, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And then you optimize these stops, right? So you really optimize your planned stops and you minimize your unplanned stops. That's really the intent of these.
That means if I've got something that's due or almost due, I might do it on that stop rather than coming back in another time because, you ran uptime, right? And uptime means I'm making money with this truck. It's not sitting in a service bay somewhere. Yeah. So the idea being then that you can pull ahead, or even, I guess you could delay, but
you could defer as well.
Yeah, defer something. Yeah,
absolutely.
But you will pull ahead something that might be due now, and that gets us back to this question of preventative versus predictive maintenance. They're not the same thing.
Correct.
Preventative maintenance has been around for a while. I mean, you want to do this because we prescribe a certain interval. Predictive maintenance is different. I remember from my days at General Motors, they were beginning to look at certain systems that they could, through a lot of data mining, they could figure out when something was going to happen. Are you to that point now with the new VNL?
So we are exploring this area, and I think it's about how do you change the behavior of a customer, because a lot of times is, you know, you run things until they break and then you replace things, right? So maintenance being one thing, but also we call it really predictive repair. So it's kind of think about the airplane model. Or the airline model. You have an engine, right?
Right.
And then you go in and you repair or replace components before they fail.
Right.
And it's really about doing those types of things. So can you look at maintenance items? Yes, you can look at brake pads and things like that you can replace proactively before they go down to a certain wear level, but also components, turbos and things like that, where it should hit a certain number of miles, but then that stop, it's cheaper and more convenient to replace it before it fails versus when it actually breaks down.
So if I have a blue service contract for that, is it covering all of the things that we might do, or are there charges along the way? How does that?
So on a blue service contract, it's predominantly the maintenance components that are covered in that contract. We can bundle with extended coverages, for instance, but then it's the traditional model where you wait until something essentially breaks and then you replace it. But we're working on weaving in predictive repairs and those types of things into our contracts in the future as well.
Now, it's about a year since you introduced the contract itself. Now, the enhancements, I think you talked about it at the ATA recently.
Think about it as your one-stop shop, vehicle portal where you have access to reporting and analytics. I think we mentioned a little bit about, insights into fuel, into safety, braking events and acceleration and all kinds of different things, seatbelt usage, those types of things.
Things you can coach from.
Exactly, right? Leveraging that. And then is also the portal. You can look at your, what is your, one huge thing that we've seen is we go to a customer and ask, what's your road speed limit? What are some of these parameter settings on your truck? And they go, I'm at 68 miles an hour. And very quickly you can visualize in there the vehicle settings, and you can say, well, there's some on 68, some are on 72, some on 65. Things happen when these trucks get into the wild, right? And it's really to get that oversight of your fleet. You can see all your remote diagnostic cases, whether you have red cases or yellow cases, the repair information for those, what's required to get that truck back on the road type of thing, software updates, track and trace, those types of things. So it's really a one-in-all portal for any Volvo truck, and including then, of course, the all-new VNL and all the data that it generates and the insight that customers can take advantage of.
From a Volvo perspective, your Uptime Center, which isn't too far from us here in North Carolina, they obviously see that too, right?
Yes. So they have a different view. So we have the customer, the Volvo Connect is really the customer portal. Dealer has a view of certain information, not everything, because we don't want to disclose everything to our dealers. And then also our Uptime Center from a support process where we can ping trucks, we can see where they are, so we can help with roadside assistance and those types of things. So that connectivity is really the backbone, and then we cater to different audiences and different users based on their needs. Really, one of the biggest differences that we're doing now is we're bringing the full suite of the solution that we have elsewhere within Volvo Trucks globally, and we have adapted that to the North American market. That's a big change. We're also giving customers the ability to, if they want to add customized operations. For instance, you may run a specific component on your truck that is not universally available for someone else. Then the dealer and the customer can have an agreement on covering customized components, as an example. So it's really incorporating that. And then also each dealer will have a dedicated fleet maintenance manager for that customer. That is your point of contact. So it really creates a personal relationship between the dealer and the customer.
Right. And I know that, Volvo dealers, anybody's dealers, that the best ones know their customers well. It isn't just because you're going to be, back in the market in 4 or 5 years to get another truck, but rather there's a lot that goes on with this very expensive piece of equipment over the years, right? So now we've got, a point of contact, a single point of contact, I guess, for this. So the customization of the Blue Service contract is sort of what you're describing. You can customize it as needed. But back to the take rate, how's the acceptance been? I mean, you have to sort of sell the idea of it as well as the contract.
Yeah. No, I think it's a little bit of relinquishing control if you're a customer. Maybe you're used to doing your own maintenance.
Yeah.
Maybe you think you can do it better or more convenient than if you give it to the hands of our dealers. But also think about it. We have a network of over 400 dealers, and we have this notion of reciprocal service. So that truck can be serviced no matter where you are in the country and under that same agreement. So while you want to try to do it at your home dealer or the dealer that you have a relationship with, should you be in in Miami and need service and something happened because you're not coming back to the West Coast, maybe that's where you are domiciled for a while, any dealer in our repair network can service that truck.
You're buying then essentially, I'm buying a truck, that's a pretty good investment there. Now I'm taking care of both routine maintenance and possibly customized maintenance. I can do this presumably in one payment, right?
Yes.
If I want to, so I can finance it. I don't,
Yes.
Along with the truck. Is there really, what are the one or two big selling points that you can land with a customer on this?
Well, I think number one is that convenience. Number one, right? You establish a relationship, and of course, we make sure together with our dealer partners that the truck is really maintained to factory specifications. We're optimizing it. We're making sure that all the routine maintenance is taken care of, software updates are handled. We can weave in our remote diagnostics services into the contract. So should we detect other issues, we can optimize those planned stops. And that's really what it becomes about, is taking that intelligence that we gather on the back end and package that to our customers and make sure that it's really simple.
Is the contract an a la carte, pick one from column A, one from column B type approach, or is it several things are standard and then you go from there?
It's primarily a number of things that are standard, and then you can sort of add things. But again, it's really between the customer and the dealer, and it's about what's right for that truck, and it's not this one size fits all. So it's truly each truck is really almost a customized contract.
Yeah. You referenced over the air briefly. I remember when it became a thing a few years ago in trucking, and people were offering two of them. You can have two over the airs as part of this. Now it's more or less routine because more things are handled through computer reflash and things like that. How does over the air play out with something like this? It's obviously unlimited within the agreement.
So we really have a couple of things when it comes to over the air. So we have the normal software. Think about your iPhone. I get version X.1, whatever the number may be, right? So you get into that, and I think one almost has to think about normal software. It's almost maintenance, right? But then over the air takes that maybe inconvenience in. I got to plug in a diagnostic tool, and I got to sit there and read out the truck and then program it, and it takes time. Where now the over-the-air updates, it's done usually in less than 10 minutes. So that's the one thing on the software. But I think the capability over the air to update, even we call it parameters or vehicle settings. I want to change my road speed limit because the price of diesel went up, or I'm operating in different types of load.
Or I have a new driver,
idle time settings, PTO settings, whatever those may be. We can also change them over the air. So it takes that, something very maybe cumbersome in the past, and it's a key cycle now in the dash.
All we have to get to now, though, Magnus, is this idea, like with our iPhones, that they'll do it while we're sleeping. That would be great, right? But even so, it's basically probably sitting in the sun so the signal can reach it. Things like that, but not a hassle, really. I mean, to do this work.
No.
What else can you accomplish under the contract, really, or separate from that, from a connectivity standpoint?
Yeah. So I think it's really then taking our connectivity services and baking them in, so the customer can also get insight. How is my truck actually operating, and is it, are there spec changes I should be making? And our dealers too, they have access to a tool where they can look at how those trucks are performing, and they can compare anonymously. If I look at your trucks and your fleet and you're running certain routes, and we can find similarities, and we can help through the connectivity data, we can also help in the specking. So there's a lot of advancements being done on the hardware side of rear axle ratios and down speeding and other things. And it may seem a little bit skeptical to maybe a traditionalist, but if you can prove through the data that the trucks spec'd a certain way, run maybe better than what you think they should be because there's so many advancements, then we can also help a consultative approach leveraging that same data that these trucks
And having a single point of contact makes that more real. It's like a stranger coming to you and telling you that you should do this. You know, one of the advantages I think in claims of the new VNL is 10% better fuel economy. I would want proof. I'd want you to prove it to me, and I think this is clearly something you could do through the analytics.
Yeah, and through our Volvo Connect portal, the customer has access to all the information that these trucks are generating, so they can follow along very easily and see, okay, am I getting the proof? You just didn't sell somebody a truck which is touted to be this great. We have the data. We will have the data to back it up, so everyone can follow along, and you can see that my truck is doing what it was supposed to do.
You have the data, you own the data, but you do work with certain suppliers on certain things. I think you said Geotab, that you work with for certain things. Is there a range of suppliers? I guess they would be in your parlance, a tier one supplier that would be involved, and how does that change over time? Is that something where they're in at the beginning and they stay in?
Yeah, so I would say it this way though. When we talk to customers, and when our customers look at data that we present and is generated from our trucks, they tend to trust OEM data more. There's a lot of nuances when you have an integrated telematics device on your truck versus you read it from the generic data bus kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot more insight. I mean, we can get very granular when it comes to fuel economy. Is it moving fuel economy, idle, PTO usage, all kinds of nuances versus you just look at fuel consumption, right? So that then looking at how is the truck being operated, what are the drivers doing, taking that information and helping to coach, because then you take the fleet know certain things, we know certain things, you put that together, and then you have really good insight, and then the customer is in control to do what they want to do.
Well, it's interesting at the driver, and I mean, let's take something that may or may not be part of this, but forward-facing cameras, everybody's okay with that. Rear-facing cameras, still a little bit of pushback on that. But I would think that if, again, you can prove it to me as a driver that you are, in fact, working with data that I really do need to pay attention to. It isn't like getting my report card, although some could perhaps do it that way. The idea is that, no, this is how we're going to do better together with this. Is that...
Yeah, is the human element is always tricky, right? There's emotion involved, and there's perception, and there's those types of things. But if you can zoom out and kind of have it more of a data-driven type of approach, I think, at least in some cases, we've seen success where that becomes acceptable. But I think it's really, how do you sell or promote or manage these kind of things inside a fleet? What does that make sense? What works for you may not work for somebody else. You got to find, the level of acceptance that make your business successful.
Recruiting over-the-road drivers is not easy, and especially younger drivers. But I would think that the younger drivers would be the ones who might be more accepting of this because this is the way they grew up.
Yeah.
Just take something like an automated manual transmission. Nobody's really making, manuals anymore, except maybe in some heavy haul applications or severe service. But the thought being here that the younger driver will come in and they wouldn't even ever know what it was like to shift through, 14 or 16 years. The same true for a lot of the connected.
Well, I think that's a great analogy. It's really understanding that when you have people that have been in the transition, they can look back and it was, better in the past or whatever. Some of the sayings,
more chrome too. Yeah.
More chrome, more smoke, whatever it may be, right?
That's right. Yep.
More power, perhaps. But really, I have young kids, and I look at how they are embracing technology. And I think that if that's the norm, then again, you look at it very differently. Different generations look at things very differently. But we create tools because we know that they are providing better insight that can make you a better decision maker. And that's what we're trying to do, right? We're not trying to reflect on the past, it was better then. It was like, with what we know, how do we share that with our customers to make better decisions, for them to be more profitable, and for our trucks to have better uptime, etc.
Right. It is all about uptime at the end of the day, but I want to talk about safety for just a minute, because it's a hallmark of Volvo and Volvo Truck. And I guess I'm curious on the connectivity side or the contract side, or whichever you want to address, how the safety is, safety enhancements really of the new VNL have been impacted here, and is there a connection, like a direct connection?
Yeah, but the active safety on the new vehicle is phenomenal. Right, and we've added a lot of new features, and even we've added an industry first, an e-call.
Yeah.
So very similar to what you may have experienced in an automatic crash notification. So if a truck, an airbag is deployed, or we detect a rollover, we have an automatic call to nearest E911 dispatcher, send truck location. So it's to speed up emergency responses and those types of things to save life, all in the spirit of Volvo and safety first.
Yep.
And it's another industry first for us.
Right. And you have an emergency call button. I mean, I go back with my General Motors days to OnStar, which it's been doing this for a long time. Yeah. But it's now, and some of your colleagues have said this, it's now reached the truck world.
Yes.
You would be the first to be offering something like this, but it probably comes in elsewhere. The thought being that we're going to probably, as you said, save lives, but probably decrease the injury potential, or the severity of injury as well. What else kind of stands out to you as you put this together? And I mentioned early on that a lot of your background kind of carries into this in terms of how you both create a contract, and then also from a connectivity standpoint. What one or two things really stand out to you that in those areas?
Now, I think for us, with the old new VNL, we have taken the learnings that we have applied over the years on the legacy VNL, and we built those in from the beginning. So really, the way I would look at it is, where the current VNL, or the legacy VNL, sort of caps out, is the beginning point of the old new VNL.
Sure.
And we will learn a lot when these trucks get into service. We will learn together with our customers and really start to accelerate the value creation and everything that we can do with these trucks.
Yeah, I could chat here on this one, and that is this idea that when we talk about, you were just launching the legacy truck and already working on this. How early did you get involved in some of these connectivity things? So that, the birth of this thing took 7 years, right?
Yeah.
How early were you involved?
I mean, we're really involved from the beginning, and as really to set some aspirational targets, and then things as you learn, as you develop, and as engineers come to you and go, hey, how about this, or could we use something like this? And then you sort of collaborate through that journey. So obviously, the earlier the better, but the fact of the matter is that we really have built in the connectivity and maintainability from the ground up to really help to create a superior product in the market.
Well, Magnus, this has been real helpful, especially as we try to unpack truly over this year the Volvo VNL, the all-new Volvo VNL. And I appreciate you being here on Truck Tech.
Yeah,
thank you.
Great. Thanks. Nice being here.
Yep. Well, folks, we'll be back next week with another new episode of Truck Tech. We hope you enjoyed and learned a little bit about how the connectivity piece of the all-new Volvo VNL is coming together. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.